Patient capital, patient reforms, patient timelines. What's all that patience for exactly? On the ground, power systems neither work or they don't. Customers neither get power or they don't. And every extra year of waiting it out has real costs to businesses, communities, and credibilities for the players in the space. Today, we're talking with Hasana Aliyu, the Vice President of Operations at Connexa. She runs power systems where excuses don't keep the lights on. Our question today is quite simple. When does capital start to stay the course? And when is enough literally enough? I am Emeka Okpara, and welcome to the pod. Good day, and welcome to another episode of Connecting the Dots. I'm here with Hasana. Hasana, how are you?
Good afternoon, good evening. Hello.
It's really good to have you. I think we've been pushing this power sector conversation for what, over 10 plus years now?
More like, yeah, going on like 12 years now. We've been in this grind.
um, why do you keep doing it? There's obviously more interesting things to do with your time.
I don't know about more interesting. I think the more challenging something is, the more interesting it is. Whether it's actually satisfying is a different question, but we keep pushing because, first of all, it has to be done. Especially as the way this world is changing, I think we've all come to the realization that Nigeria is the only country we have. We have to fix it. We have to make it work. And one of the main ways it's going to work is if we have a sustainable, reliable power supply.
Power supply seems to be, there's a stat out there that says no country has developed without power, right? That's something that we all know. Why has that story been hard to sell across board in Nigeria?
Hard to sell that you can't develop without power.
Yeah, because
I mean,
if not, then we should have been.
I'm not aware that anyone is disputing that fact. And government after government has pumped in billions of dollars into this sector. So I don't think it's a case of not realizing the importance of the sector. It's just a case of I don't know why we're not achieving results, as in the investments, the brain power, the amount of effort being put is not translating into results. And I don't know, it's like it's the paradox of Nigeria.
No, 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 no. I disagree
Oh,
because I feel that the power sector is very clear that where it's not well coordinated.
yeah.
So regardless of how much money you put into a leaking bucket, it's
Mhm.
still going to leak. You've got to fix the leak first.
So yeah, but that's my point. My point is the fact that they keep throwing money at it um, signifies that they realize that it's an important sector. It has problems, problem needs solving. But the part about solving is where we're getting it wrong. And I mean, generally in Nigeria, we have good plans, we develop good plans, but when it comes to the implementation, we always fall short. And same thing I think is happening in the sector. We've we understand what needs to be done. We've planned to do it, and yet it's just not being done. And over when it's like you have like a 50-year plan and you start on the journey towards your 50th year. First year you hit all your targets, second year, and then somewhere we always deviate. We always do that. We deviate from what is laid down, and once that deviation starts, then it just starts the gap just keeps getting wider and wider and wider where we've moved away from where we're supposed to be. And I feel like in the beginning, we had a plan with the privatization and we set up on the path to improve the sector. And then somewhere along the way, we started moving away from the plan.
Mm.
And the gap just getting wider, the misalignment, the lack of coordination, the lack of maintenance, the lack of growth, everything just started expanding till the problem got so big that we are here where we are now, where we have invested this so much money, so much time, so much brain power, experts within Nigeria, outside of Nigeria, foreign investors. We all came in the early 2010s, so excited. There were so many investors ready to come into this sector, ready to put the money here. back these projects, and somehow to today, none of them have come to fruition. As in, back then when we were on this IPP journey, um, there were like so many solar
Hmm.
IPPs ready to coming.
Oh, that's
The,
right.
the
Because that was,
framework
yeah,
was there, and somehow Azura was the only one who managed to go forth, and then the rest of us since then nothing.
which is super interesting given where Nigeria sits on the equator. Sun is not our challenge, right?
Yeah.
Germany has a quarter of the sun's radiation we do, and they're doing gigawatts in solar. So I think it's a conversation around a lot of people think the challenge in running a country like Nigeria and just doing running a country like Nigeria specifically is that it's the complex things that are hard. I actually think it's the reverse. It's the really mundane and
The
boring
repetitive
things
things, yeah.
that are so I want to that are so boring that we as Nigerians get
The unsexy things.
precisely things that are just like okay, do I know now, and I don't know, I don't want to. That just seems very boring. Like for instance. I remember, I don't remember which program it was. It was one of the World Bank programs that one of the Nixon's precedents was that for you to get this number of dollars released to solve your financial crisis in the sector, you had to appoint boards.
Mm,
That's
simple
that's
and
something
basic.
that can be done in an afternoon with whoever is in charge. But that wasn't done. And I'm sure the World Bank is sitting there and saying, wait, you want to do Manbila's 3,000 megawatts in your mind? How are you going to do such a complex project when you cannot do the easy things? So for me, those is the fact that we just don't we're not able to get the boring things done and the unsexy
Yeah,
things
I
done.
mean, I think yeah, it's very much a case of not putting in place the operations to drive progress. So it's, I mean, it's easy to I say easy, but you can attract investment, you can build assets, but even like once you've successfully built an asset, fine. And this is what we see a lot in the power sector. So many assets that have been built and are just sitting there idle. So it's because you've just decided that I'm going to invest and build an asset, but you haven't thought beyond that point. You know, what's the operations of this asset? Who is going to operate it? Who are the off takers going to be? How is it going? How is the revenues going to be generated? All of these things is so it's I don't know. Are we putting the cart before the horse before the cart? Are we not even just are we just looking at the cart that we're looking at the cart and the horse separately? The cart is over here, the horse is over here, and no one's getting where they need to be, you know? So I don't know. And it's not like you said, as I said, it's not as though it's complicated. So at some point, you now have to start thinking it's just deliberate that we just don't want the sector to work. I don't know.
Saying it's deliberate now would be very troubling, right? Because then at that point, there's no point there. Then at that point, we should all leave the country and go to Nigeria and go and hang out.
I mean, I think maybe I mean the different people in this different vested interests. I think maybe there's some people that maybe yeah they're interested that the sector doesn't work, but also there are other people who the reason why they invested in the first place was not the right reason. So maybe it's a political reason. Oh, I need to just be seen to have implemented a capital project in my constituent. So I'm
I
going
need an
to
asset. Mhm.
install this substation, this transformer, put the light poles, but there is no transmission to come here to bring. So it wasn't planned, it wasn't coordinated with the stakeholders in the sector. You didn't go and let the disco know that this is what I want to do. Help me, let's partner together, let's plan it properly so it's actually a feasible project. I just have this money. I need to be re-elected. I need to have been seen to do something. So it's about visual achievement rather than sustainable achievement.
So it's two things here. There's um we were sitting at the NIAF two offices 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago actually, talking through President Jonathan at the time's mandate on the sector to get to 6,000 megawatts by December 2014. But like you said, who knows what the motives were, but that was a goal. So we sat down. I was working in the Ministry of Power. Sat down with the minister's aides, senior guys who know how sectors work, and the NIA folks who are bringing in the international knowledge. Sat down and started talking about it. So we had a plan of 4,005 by 3 months from June, then 5,000 in September, and then 6,000 in December. Plan laid out very like with very detailed. You do this, you need this in to be released. The minister can help you do it through TCN. It was very clear on what needed to be done. After that whole conversation, that conversation happened in April, I believe. By June, when we're supposed to get to 4,005 of consistent power flowing through the system, the committee met again and then asked for progress. And most people on government and private sector hadn't done their part. So you had a presidential mandate that said, I must get to this, wasn't done. So it's almost like people.
But question, you had a plan and you had each person who had knew their responsibility for that plan, but who was managing and coordinating?
So this was back in the days of a very different PTFP. It wasn't the former PTFP that was very hard charged. So PTFP was supposed to hold the pen, from what I recall, but it wasn't because remember, pre-privatization, PTFP was very involved in driving through the process, and that really got us to reform the way that things should have been done. But yes, you're right. There wasn't anyone who was holding the pen there.
And I feel like, a lot of time you just automatically believe private sector will just get the job done. They have the discipline, they have the knowledge, they have the know-how. But sometimes, especially when a lot of what you're doing relies on government, sometimes as private sector, you like to sit back and just make sure that government does what they're supposed to be doing first before you now commit, because you don't want to like commit your time, your resources, and then you find out that what you needed from the government side hasn't happened. So
Mhm.
sometimes you just see private sector sitting back because they don't trust that government is going to do their part, and they'll be left holding the baby. you know.
Um, the
But also, I was always going to say, I also don't think that we dream big enough in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole. You see data from countries like India, much bigger country, bigger population, and you see the amount of gigawatts that they're putting on the grid annually. And this is something that even in 10 years we are unable to achieve.
Mhm.
I just don't think we're doing big enough in Nigeria.
No, you're right, though. There's a conversation that what we lack in Nigeria is confidence to do things because we're used to status quo and no one wants to overturn the apple cart. And you're completely right because two examples, Pakistan and Egypt. Egypt rolled out the Siemens plan 10, 15 years ago. And within that time period, I would say double just to be conservative, but I think those numbers were more likely tripled their grid capacity, and they keep adding projects almost generation almost on a monthly basis. Whereas our Siemens project hit a number of roadblocks, and yes, there's progress. And there's a lot of work going on, but there's not a lot of we haven't felt
Yeah,
because the first document said
by a certain timeline.
6,000,
Yeah.
8,000, 10,000, and we haven't seen that. So there's that bit where we haven't been able to really push that through. But I think the for me and for just to land on the Pakistan point, Pakistan enacted the net metering regulation that then allowed people to sell power to one another. People then got smart and said, "Oh, interesting. If I have more panels on my roof that I need, I can sell some of it and make money back." That completely changed their network, and I think they added almost 20. I think it's 28 gigawatts of power in a very short amount of time. Pakistan and Nigeria are quite similar as far as very diverse and all of that. So it's not that they're one homogeneous place, and so there's some lessons that we definitely need to learn learn there. But I think when I look at the power sector and where things are going, um, a number of things stick out to me that what we're doing is not rocket science. It's been done before. So it's not that there's no place you can look up to see what we should do. It's out there. We just haven't chosen to do it. But I think there's a lot of interest, political, financial, personal, all sorts of things are involved in that conversation. That's why for me, I feel that for the power conversation to hold the way it should, it needs to become, you need the president like the president did when he became president at Eagle Square to get rid of subsidies. You need that sort of a presidential directive, and president needs to be involved in making sure that things move from point A to point B. That's I think there needs to be a council of very high level stakeholders to manage that process. Conversations really around having more of a presidential oversight to power, given the importance of it in the whole country.
Mm.
Do you think that's something that happen? And yeah,
I mean, it definitely should happen, and maybe the president can also like nominate someone who will be the champion of the sector, someone who's 100% focused is power sector. Obviously, the president's 100% focus can't be power sector, so he needs to appoint the champion, and this is the deliverables. So go ahead and achieve them by, I mean, almost by any means necessary at this point.
yeah, but that would then mean that the person would have to have enough passion, enough
Yeah, yeah,
enough,
obviously has to be the right person,
yeah,
and everybody needs to be aware he has the president. Person needs to be able to just walk into the president's office. Nobody,
president's bedroom, not
yeah, yeah,
office.
nobody stopping him. They need to have that much power and direct access. Everybody needs to know this is the president's man, and he has the president's 100% backing, and whatever he needs, he will get.
I guess that was a role the former chief of staff played
Yeah,
because it was clear
yeah.
he was the one that was in
I was
charge.
pushing, pushing.
Interesting. Yeah, Nigerian power sector. So, give us a context of your journey. You already said why the power sector. It's exciting, it's challenging, it keeps you up at night, so you like it.
I didn't say I liked it. I said it was interesting. You
Before,
can't be bored.
no, you
Let's
can't.
just put it that way.
Before your work with the solar company, you obviously worked somewhere else, or did you work somewhere else? Could you walk us through your
Yeah, as in
journey?
I wasn't in the power sector at all. I was working as a civil engineer in railway infrastructure in the UK. And then I came back, did my NYC, and randomly fell into the power sector. I had a friend from the UK who was interested in developing solar. And this was around the time that now came out with their feed-in tariff for renewable energy. So there was a lot of interest in developing solar on
Mhm.
the grid. So he was someone who thought there was an opportunity here. So he came to Nigeria. He got in touch. Would I be interested in joining him on this journey? And that's how somehow I find myself. Like 11 years later, I'm still here. So yeah, that's just randomly how I got into the power sector. And so we started with that solar development. From there, obviously, understanding more how the Nigerian power sector was transforming, the privatization exercise, and where the opportunities were, where the gaps were. And I think very quickly we understood that as private investors, the one of the key stakeholders is the distribution companies. You
Mhm.
have to find some way to work with them collaboratively, to because at the end of the day, whatever you do, you need to be able to get to the end customer, supply them, and collect revenue from them. So having that connection with the distribution is where you unlock a lot of opportunities and also um, deal with a lot of the challenges. So that's where we now decided on this model where we are working within one of the Discourse franchise in a partnership where they give us a network area, we take over, we do all the investment required, It's the investment in distribution, embedded energy for reliability, customer service, all of that in partners with and then the disco is a stakeholder within that ring fence franchise. So ring fence from all the delinquency of the wider disco, and basically starting over within like a blank slate and making trying to prove a concept where you have, if you have the right planning and you have the right operations, what your investment can earn returns. You can make a profitable concern. But the distribution company, as we all know, the challenges are many, and it just got to a volatile point where banks were calling in loans. You were seeing newspaper articles that they were threatening to revoke their license, and these are the kind of things that scare investors. They don't like uncertainty, they don't like volatility, and so at this point, we now had to pivot. And luckily for us, it was at a point where bilateral was opening up, and NERC had started issuing trading licenses to private sector. So outside of NBET, private sectors could apply for trading license. So this is the direction we now pivoted to. So we said we would get a trading license. We would still working in partnership with discos. We would target customers that are off the grid, who have high demand and are currently relying on captive power that is mainly diesel, occasionally gas. But these are unsustainable, expensive, environmentally unfriendly captive generation, and a lot of them are looking for ways to lower their power bills. So we came up with this model where we would bring these customers back on the grid and do the necessary investments to make sure they had that level of reliability that they have with their captive generation. So it involves investment in generation, in transmission, in distribution, in substations, and in battery energy systems to make sure that the whole supply chain from start to end is properly invested in, maintained, coordinated, and you now can say to this customer, I can guarantee you 97% reliability and availability. Obviously, in our current situation, you can never tell anybody they get rid of their diesel generator. That would be like the final, last fail safe if everything else has failed. And obviously, it also involves network reconfiguration. Right now, we have a very radio network where if your supply fails, there's no redundancy, there's no backup, there's no switching. So also tailoring the network so you have N-1 at the very least. So once all redundancies have finally failed, then you now tell them, go ahead, switch on your generator. But then having the best means that is seamless. So the best is carrying their power for 4 hours. And when you see the grid is not coming back, if you have like 30 minutes left of state of charge of your batteries, you now signal to them, all right, start your generators, and generators take over the load. So within the premises, there is no they cannot see that there's any change in their power supply. Everything is just operating automatically, seamlessly, with multiple redundancies.
So BESS is battery energy storage system.
Yes.
Wow, I feel like an engineer. Um, no, so that's a really uh, obviously, given the redundancies you need, given the way our grid is structured, this model makes the most sense, right? Because you're able to essentially guarantee that regardless of what happens, you will have power supply. So that's good to know.
But also, I think what's equally important is for reliability, it's not simply a case of designing an engineering system. It's also about the operations that you have to put in place to ensure that the system is reliably servicing the customer.
Mhm.
Having the proper, it's like operations is where your design meets service. So it's where your maintenance culture, your supply chain, your people, your discipline, your strategy, your systems, all of it putting in place to make sure that fine, we've invested in this asset. Now this asset is going to run and operate the way that we said it would. And that's where your operations are key to ensuring that you achieve that.
Yeah, and I think one one thing that we've seen here at the firm is when we engage with distribution companies, for the most part, management, the board, like we said to start the show, is most of them, their incentives and their alignment to this sustainable, reliable, and affordable power we're talking about is doesn't quite align, might not align given the reasons why they bought it or whatever the case is. But I feel that most management staff at that C-suite that we talk to all know what to do and they all understand the problems and they're all trying to improve things. The biggest challenge is around the operation staff. How have you guys been able to make those folks or cajole those folks to work with this new system that you're providing?
I mean, to be fair to Discos, I mean, they have thousands of employees. So I cannot imagine the headache of operations for a disco. We have a very small operation. So we have a small team. It's a lot easier to instill the kind of culture that we need. So for us, it's not just about technical skills, it's about mindset.
Hmm.
And one thing that I feel just generally in Nigeria we lack is a maintenance culture. So it's having that mindset where you're not just there to maintain a machine, you're there to provide a service to the end customer. So you're part of a process that is delivering a service, and your part is equally as important as the CEO's part. So just having people understand their function within a team, and you're not just, oh, somebody who is just there doing maintaining machines. You're an intrinsic part of an overall system. And without you, there will be a gap in the system and we cannot now guarantee the service that we said we were going to guarantee. So it's having that mindset where you're trying to create a culture where everyone feels that they are playing a significant and important role
But
in the
that's
end
hard to
service.
do, isn't it? Because the disco staff have been siloed to play on this wing, and yet I'm actually no, come and play in the middle now, where I need you to do a little bit more. So because most of them have been in similar roles, or they haven't had a lot of exposure to a hybrid model.
I mean, but I
What's
don't
the
even think it
process?
needs to be a hybrid model. It's like I said, it's about getting people invested in the. So it's as in I'm a disco customer. I'm an Abuja disco customer, and we have a lot of issues that crop up, and a lot of times I go to the linear substation. I get the technical staff, please come to my house, sort this thing out, and you have conversations, and you understand the challenges that these guys have. For them, they don't see any. There's no investment in the company.
Mm.
They're just the staff who feel disposable.
Mhm.
So if you already have that lack of motivation, lack of attachment, they're not attached for it, like just collecting a salary. They a lot of the time they feel, it's dangerous work working on electrical systems.
Mhm.
They probably feel that they're not properly considered, their safety is not considered, their health is not considered. If something happens now, they end up in hospital, they
No one
unable
took
to
care of
work.
them. Yeah.
What's going to happen? So but as I said, I feel for discos. It's a lot of people to manage, to get on board, to change the way they think, to build this culture where everyone feels invested, incentivized, part of the whole. It's a lot of people to try and transform that kind of working mindset, but it needs to be done. And because if you don't do it, that is where you now start getting sabotage. So the people who are supposed to be there helping you grow your company are the people who are actively sabotaging it.
So these are the folks that are normally referred to as NEPA 2
Yeah.
people. Interesting.
I mean, a lot of the time, NEPA 2 are probably like ex NEPA staff who are
Mhm.
maybe are not necessarily working for the disco. But even the disco staff, as their bottom line is I need to feed my family. And
Precisely.
so wherever I can find that access, I will enter that road. So maybe you find them assisting customers in bypassing meters, in or even cases where there is a process in place. If something has gone wrong, this is the process in which you notify, you request necessary work tools and the materials, and all that can take a very long time. And you have a customer who is burning diesel 40,000 naira every day.
Mhm.
The customer is like, no, look, bypass all this. I will give you money and just basically go through the back door and do what you need to do.
Mhm.
So it's like the whole process
Yeah,
from the customers to the operating staff, everyone is compromised.
precisely.
And you can't blame. Why you don't want to be running your diesel generator for 1 week because it's going to take 1 week for them to go through the procurement process to get the materials to get on site.
Sure.
And probably will say, oh, well, we don't have money on ground at the moment. So, they're just going to have to wait. So,
So a few almost 10 years ago, I moved into a flat. It didn't have meters. So we're paying estimated bills, I guess, right? So then a few months later, ADC shows up with meters. Fantastic. They put it on. I come to work here. I go home. The meter is installed, but the guy says he's not finished. He needs to come back the next day. Cool. Enjoy yourself. I go to work. I go to work the next day. Come back. Meter's installed. This probably was before buy power. So
mm, mm,
we're having
I
to go
remember those days.
to ADC to buy units to go in and put in the numbers.
Yeah.
So did that for a while. Then randomly, ADC staff show up at my house and they're doing an audit and they say, "Oh, your seal's broken. You've been
Bypass.
bypassing." And in my mind, I think that probably just coming from like a power dialogue event. I'm like, I do you know like
Mm,
almost like this you're
there's a
clearly
mistake
there's a
somewhere.
mistake somewhere. Then they show me that the guy when he installed the meter, he broke the seal
Yeah.
and just fixed the meter and left. So the meter, for
So, and
instance,
he did that because he didn't understand how to install meters, or he was trying to do something.
pro- and there were six flats and it was just mine that was broken, right?
Okay.
So it was probably because he didn't understand it or just was in a hurry and just had to go. But after we inquired further, they said, "Oh yeah, we have installers that work for AEDC. They're not AEDC staff." Found out the person was in a rush. So he tried the first day, something went wrong. The second day, he just quickly did it on military and he moved on with his life. So that process was totally painful because ADC now gave me a bill of, I think, 500K when Naira was Naira, right? Like 360. And that's
A hell of a lot of money.
incredible amount of money. And I'm like, how? And so thankfully, when I took the bill to the AADC office, I then met people who had been coming to next year who know who we are. Like, oh yeah, obviously you're not bypassing. So they were able to, with a bit of some
Sorry,
finesse,
just you say obviously, but the worst offenders are the
uh,
people who should know better.
yeah,
But carry on.
there's definitely some really, really interesting examples about that. But so after that whole process, it was painful, probably cost. They made me pay the 100,000 naira reconnection fee. And my friend was like, "You're never gonna see this. Just pay it and get your power reconnected." So I did that. And then the back bill took time to
Mm.
now go away. But what I think is so unique is if I didn't have those connections, I would have been in a slew of nonsense based on what someone did. And that's troubling for me. But there's really not much ordinary folks can do about it besides go through this process of complaining.
And I mean, it's like a lot of ordinary folks don't even know the process. They don't know their rights. They don't know the recourse they have to complaints to whether it's within AEDC, whether it's NAC, to take up the cause for them. A lot of people just feel helpless. They feel helpless. They feel trodden on by the system, and they feel like they have no option but to comply with almost this like mafioso kind of tactics to coerce you into doing what you should. It's not your responsibility to do, but you have no choice.
And it seems like when you look at how disco staff do behave, I don't think it's yes, there's a financial point of view, but a lot of them are just trying to get their job done. And if it's to bypass, because they're not fully aligned with how the company works, they're they just behave that sort of
I
way.
mean, I think it's both not being aligned, but it's also both not having the support of the company. So you have, and you imagine that they're in between the company and the customer. Customer is calling them on an hourly basis, abusing their, abusing their life. And they're trying to tell you that, look, it's not my fault. I made the request. It's in the system. They say there's no money. And, so and at this point, it's like, even as the technical staff, you're like now telling the customer, if you need this done quickly, you have to
Just
pay for it yourself. And now the customer is now thinking that you're trying to exploit them, you're trying to cheat them. So it's just like a broken system, and everyone is just at each other's throats.
and I think once a customer feels that I've paid for this wire, I've paid for this transformer. Yes, the Electricity Act or the grid code says once you put something in the system, it belongs to the
To the
disco.
system.
But the person saying I've spent a million naira on X, Y, and Z. If I bypass,
I'm just getting my money
I'm
back.
getting my money back.
Return on my investment. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. You see, I think it comes from the day one of the privatization. Perhaps these guys didn't really know the true state of the
mhm.
network, but the amount of investment that would have been needed to clean up was not there.
Yeah,
So
but no,
it's
definitely
like they've been in fire stopping mode from day one.
not.
They
Mhm.
haven't had the space, the operational space to actually now um, 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 put in place the right system, the right culture, because a lot of their effort is going into just fire stopping.
And
So,
that's
it's like one of the technical staff was telling me how they have like breakers on the system are so old that they now trip themselves. So they were working on a repair. They obviously opened the breaker, so isolated the system, and it by itself closed because it was
mm,
old, it was malfunctioning, and it closed on its own, and the person died. So it's like you just have to think to prevent these kind of things happening. There is so much, not just rehab, but just income replacement of
mhm.
equipment on this system. It's just so much investment that is needed. And so at this point, you now have to start asking yourself, are these discos too big? Does it need smaller networks where people like Connection can come in with the investment and do the overhaul that needs to be done,
Mhm.
bring it up to spec?
Mhm.
And then at that point, if you want to now start making regional grids, then you now at least you now have the right level of equipment. But
Yeah.
these like Abuja Disco is like 4 states.
Of course, it's and Niger's the biggest state in the country.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's like you have so much to do. Where do you even start?
yeah, and then even the conversation of staff loyalty and trust and all that stuff goes out the window when a staff just learned that one of their comrades died because of yes, it's the disco didn't do it, but
They didn't do it, but then now when it comes to now you want to investigate what happened. Nobody wants to take responsibility. It now
Mhm,
becomes a blame game. If the operator is telling you this is the reason why, and then the disco is saying no, it's as a result of negligence.
yeah.
So now, how do you now prove your case? And obviously, the bigger power oftentimes will win.
And then so then you now send the other employees out to do similar things, and they'll be like, no, 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 no. They'll now,
It's not worth it.
yeah, it's
It's not worth it.
not just what they're like. But speaking of different models, Connect has obviously pivoted from the first idea to now doing more the larger embedded conversations which fits into the states conversations that we're not hearing that some states are not some discos have not broken up into different
State markets. Yeah.
state goes. And I think that process could work. Obviously, there's a learning curve that comes with it. We won't even get to the how that the structure is. But my questions around the work Conexa has done. Conexa has been very fortunate to be able to stay around for so long, given all the trials and tribulations you guys have gone through. Your patient, the capital you have is clearly patient. What what's the story that they keep saying, okay, we believe in you, go, as opposed to some financiers saying, sorry, we've talked about this thing for too long. I need to
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
my resources somewhere else.
I mean, I think it's two things. I mean, well, firstly, it's about recognizing that despite the challenges, there's opportunity, and you, as as more and more of the world becomes developed, you now start looking for where the opportunities are, and the opportunities in Nigeria. So with the kind of investment we have, it's two things. It's investment in innovation and investment in delivery. So we have a model where it's not just something that came out of someone's head. They've seen where it's been done in other parts of the world and it works. So for them, they understand that obviously just because it worked in other parts of the world, in Nigeria is a different context. So you have the idea, now you have to make a reality and prove that it can work within the Nigerian context within the NESI. So they're investing in an innovative idea for Nigeria. Go ahead, pilot it, prove your concept, and then the capital is there over the next 20 years. And they understand that for these kind of innovations are expensive. So to make them attractive, you have to have a long-term view.
Yeah.
And one reason for that is just to make sure that it's affordable for the customer. So
Mhm.
if you're investing all this money and you say your repayment period is 5 years, it's going to be it's not going to be affordable.
Mhm.
So they have taken this view that yes, we are investing in innovation, prove the concept, prove it's attractive to all the stakeholders, the regulator, the transmission company, the distribution company, and the final end user, and then design your structure in a way where it's also affordable. And this, regardless of that, we're still earning the right returns. So we're earning the right returns over a longer period of time, but it's sustainable, it's affordable, and it's scalable.
Mhm. And you mentioned earlier that this Connection team is very lean as in regards to the human beings that work on the project. So that means most of your projects you work directly with the disco operation staff.
No, we have our operation staff,
You have your okay.
but we design a smart network. So there's a lot of automation. So our projects are spread over different states. So we have a central network control center in Abuja. So from Abuja, we can see all our networks, no matter what
So
state
you
it
use an AMI,
is.
IoTs, and all
All of
that good
that.
stuff.
So it's a smart network. So we have uh physical operating staff at substation. Obviously, you always need somebody there to intervene when they need to intervene, but you have the network alerting you to where the problem is. So you don't have someone who is patrolling up and down looking for an issue. The system will always tell you this is where the fault is. So you don't need so many people when you have a smart network because everything is already available for you to see.
And you guys have customers that pay. So what's that payment model? They pay the disco and then disco
No,
pays you?
it's a direct. So it's two things. It's either under eligible customer where it's just a direct um PPA with you as the trader, them as the eligible customer, or it's under the trading license model. You're going through the disco to get to the customer. So between you and the disco, you negotiate how that looks. With us with the discos we're working with, we have a good relationship where they understand that these are off-grid customers. They don't have the capacity to bring them on the grid. They can't make the investments that would persuade these
Off grid
guys.
meaning that these are
100% captive.
but they're more like commercial customers
They're industrial
and
customers.
they're
They're
high.
within the urban area,
Okay.
but they're not connected to the network
Because of
because
reliability issues.
reliability.
Yeah.
So what it takes to convince them to get on the network is a lot of investment. And the disco can't just focus all the investment on one customer.
Yes,
We
yes.
Connexa can.
Mhm.
So understanding that we're bringing them back on the grid, and it's beneficial to the disco because it's their network. We have to pay them for access to their network.
Mhm.
So between Connexa and the disco, we come up with a framework that allows us to have direct access to the customer, but using the Desktop network and paying the disco for that.
Using the duos
Yeah,
essentially.
it's like a duos agreement where they're giving us access to the network and the customer, and we're paying for that.
So just I think you said this earlier, but just to crystallize that it goes your generation solution, either solar
Or
as
hydro.
or hydro as
Yeah.
number one, then you go to your VAS
No, so it's
or
so
the
far
grid
it's
in
all
between.
been over the grid connected Jenkos.
Mhm.
So in the case of the hydro, is a hydro connected on 132, stepping down at the 132, 33. Then we invest in the distribution because, as I said, these guys are off grid, so we have to build the line to connect them
Mhm.
to the substation.
That's expensive.
It is. Sometimes we even have to invest in the transmission substation to expand capacity. So, because a project we have in Lagos, the substation is has no spare capacity. We have to invest in a bay,
Mm.
increase capacity so we can draw a line. And then we to get the line to the customer site, we have an injection substation, step it down to 11 kV. From 11 kV to the best transformer, from the transformer to the best the PCS, the best system. The best system also now has a link to the generator, so it's automatic, so they can talk to each other.
Mm.
So when
Interesting. So
the
this.
best is, for instance, in the case of a grid collapse, if the grid hasn't come back after an hour and a half, the state of charge is 30 minutes. So it now tells the generator start.
Mm.
So the generator starts, and then when the grid comes back on, the BESS has a state of charge of 80%. It now tells generator switch off, transfer the load. So that's how it works.
Interesting. So
And all
the
that is automated.
wow. So solar, your renewable energy source becomes the primary,
Yes.
and then it goes to the battery, and then the jet generator becomes a fail safe.
Yeah, exactly. So
Interesting. So
so far
more.
we've had like how many two or three grid collapses this year.
Yeah.
So in that instance, yeah, the grid is not going to come back in time.
Mhm.
They're going to have to switch the generator.
And given where your given the type of customers you have, downtime is not
Not
prevalent.
even downtime. It's even if you can guarantee them 99.9%, but when you're switching, there's going to be a
The
flicker.
frequency has to, and then
You have to maintain the
maintain.
voltage and the frequency,
So that means
because
you have
when
voltage
they
controls
have
as well. Yeah.
continuous processes that have these logics. So once the when the power flickers, the logic systems reset,
Hmm.
and basically everything that was in the processing line is rubbish.
So that means you have these, I think they're called voltage control machines to ensure that the voltage stays the same, or is it, or
So
how?
as in with the battery inverter system has it maintains the power quality.
Mm.
So it's maintaining the power quality as this level, and then it's holding the power, transferring it, and so it's a double inverter system.
Okay.
So because that transfer, I know if you have solar inverter system in your house, you can always tell when the NEPA comes and goes because there is a flicker.
Mhm.
So we have a system that is a double inverter system, so you don't have that flicker between the transfer.
This all sounds very sophisticated and
It is.
sounds like we're in a different part of the world,
What I'm saying
not
is,
in Nigeria.
and the thing is, I guess, as I said, it's an innovation and it's a learning. So right now, in one of our sites that is operational in Kaduna, you have the specs of your best. They've told you this is how it operates. This is under the condition it operates optimally, and it's been designed in I don't know, Europe or America or wherever, and it's mostly been used in those parts of the world. Now you have it in Nigeria, specifically Kaduna. It's Hamatan, and for instance, they tell you that the filters only need to be cleaned once a year. We've found that you have to clean those things every 2 weeks. The amount of dust that accumulates, and if once the filters get dirty, the temperature in the PCS starts climbing, and it will trip. If you don't bring the temperature down, it will trip. So it's like you're learning, and you can't rely on what the data sheet says is going to happen. It's in this new environment you're learning, and as you're learning, you're building your own procedures, your own standards to make sure that, and then in the next project, and this is where, when it comes to scaling a business like Connexa, it's easy to just like deploy asset after asset after asset. But if you're not um, building your operations at the same pace, if you're not maturing in your operations, you're not going to achieve success. So from one project, we've learned, we've designed, we've tweaked the system. You buy the systems, but you might need to tweak them. So we've designed the systems that work in our environment. We've set up the procedures, and we have trained the staff
Mm.
to understand the operational environment. So now we move on to the next project. These issues that crept up in phase one, we shouldn't see them in phase two because we've learned, we've grown, and this is how operationally we mature and we're able to scale sustainably. So
Um, so it sounds like you have high performing teams, right? given the complexity and
Like
given
Chijioke was one of us because this is the kind of people we breed.
MDAADC. This is a shout out you just got.
Exactly, exactly.
But so given that structure of high performing teams and the lessons you learn from project to project, are there two or three? Because the reality is the power sector in Nigeria, probably even globally, is not at a place, especially in Nigeria, that where competition is a problem because opportunities are so wide. So are there lessons you've learned that you would like to share for folks who are looking to do something similar, or just people who want to who are looking to understand a little bit more about how you guys were able to succeed throughout this whole period?
I mean, I think you need to go in there with the right mindset. First of all, you need to be adaptive because there will be so many stumbling blocks that will make you want to give up or make you think I can take this money to another country, half the headache, and I will probably get a higher return.
Hmm.
So first of all, you have to have a passion. You are doing this not only because you're trying to earn money, but you recognize that there is an issue that you want to fix.
Hmm.
So you have that passion and then you have that resilience and that agility. Agility to pivot every time you come to a hurdle, you pivot. And you have sometimes you're pivoting for 10 years before you actually manage to stick. And
Okay.
you have a model that you can take off with. And so, I mean, a lot of times you probably just want to give up. But as a Nigerian, I think most of us have probably developed this resilience because we know things take longer than they're supposed to.
Yeah.
But if we want it to happen, we just have to stick it out. So resilience and agility, I think, are key. And then you have to have the right team, and you all have to be on the same page. So it's if you have to create that culture within your organization where, as I said, everyone is fully keyed in, everyone fully understands what you're trying to achieve, and they buy into it. And so everyone is giving their all. And if you see where gaps in knowledge, in understanding is, you fill it, and you make sure you're always carrying the team along. So we're all moving on the journey together. And then you have to understand the stakeholders within the system. I think sometimes, even if you think you have the answers, you think you can do it better, but you definitely can't do it alone. And if you think you can just run roughshod of over all the other stakeholders, they will bring you back to reality.
Mm.
You can't do anything without TCN. You can't do anything without the disco. And thinking you can sideline these people is impossible. So you have to recognize the importance. And I mean, aside from anything else, these people have deep knowledge of the sector.
Yeah.
They can tell you where all the faults are. They can honestly make your life so much easier or so much harder. And it's about maintaining those relationships, recognizing the importance of all the stakeholders, and recognizing how they can help. So getting everybody keyed into the idea, and coordination. Yeah, you have to coordinate.
So there's a few things you just shared, and I want to just reemphasize them so our audience picks them up. Passion, resilience, agility, high performing team, a team for performance, culture, and communication. Out of all of these, when I look at what resonates with me, as even as we said next year and all the things that we've gone through, is culture. There's a saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I didn't believe it before, but literally, if you don't have the right culture, no matter what your strategy is, it's not gonna work.
So,
And people build companies, not the founders, not the board, not the investors. So you have to have high performing teams to get things done. So
because otherwise, if it's just like you have one person and everyone else is just like fodder, once that one person goes, everything falls apart.
mhm, mhm, yeah, and even more so in this African context, there's only I think 2 or 3% of the companies in Nigeria are more than 50 years old because people have come and gone, and once the founder goes or
Yeah.
once an important stakeholder goes, everybody moves on. The stakeholder conversations one is something I think a lot of foreigners get wrong in Nigeria because they think my technology is superior. It will work. I remember back in the day in Ministry of Power, we were proposing something to the folks in the ministry. Fantastic idea, really good, X, Y, and Z. The director turns to one of my well, aides to the minister, one of my colleagues, and goes, "Soldier come, soldier go, barrack remain." In my very warped American mind, I'm like, what the hell is this guy's talking about? But after some thinking, he's like, yeah, you guys are going to go. We're going to stay here. He's like, finally, you're going to leave. So managing stakeholders is so important
Yeah. And
in
I
this
think sometimes
space.
we have the tendency to think that, look, we will bypass the problem and fix it with technology. But technology cannot be the answer.
Hmm.
If you don't have the right policy, if you don't have the right operations, and if you don't have people who are willing to sustain the sector, it's not going to work. Technology alone is not enough to just say, "Ah, if we have the right technology, we're going to have power." No, if you don't have all the stakeholders in doing what they need to be doing, they will sabotage. The whole system will be sabotaged.
So just I know we're hard spent on time, so let me just go take a tangent towards a technology angle as we wrap up with the stakeholder management. 5, 10 years ago, when I came into the sector, joined next year, we started thinking through what are the challenges: policy, education, coordination, technology, all sorts of things were the issues with the sector, very broad issues. But we got down to the point that cash is king.
Mm.
If I as an investor can't see a pathway to get my money back, I'm not interested in your sector. I'd much rather use my money and fix and treasure bills of just sit in my accounts than give you when I don't see how I'm going to get my balance, not to talk of my returns. So we started looking through folks to work with and really said, okay, we need this metering, something has to be done. This was days of CAPME, not even MAP, right? This is 8, 9 years ago. So we started looking at technology, kind of comb through the web of solutions and realize that unless these meters are smart and unless these meters have a bit of tech to be able to come into the system, you're not selling anything valuable. You're just like any other manufacturer. So at that point, we met a group called Stimaco. Stimaco is out of the UK. Really started working with them. They had already done about 14 or so African countries. They started their journey as a mini grid company and then realized that revenue collection was actually more important than the generation. So they
Mhm.
switched to that and really focused on that. Why I'm telling this very elongated story is to show that the pathway they took to get to becoming a metering company was around they saw the issue and they started to address it. But
But again, when like the point I made about using technologies to solve the problem only goes so far. So if you take a company like UK, most I think I'm not sure if it's everybody, but it's mostly postpaid. People don't have prepaid meters. So in Nigeria, we have developed this prepaid meter system because people don't pay their bills. And then you now say, fine, that means we're going to use technology to solve this. You have to pay before you use. And then what do Nigerians do? They bypass it. So it's
yeah,
more than just putting in technology. It's some sort of education orientation. I don't know what it is, but there needs to be, I guess, the soft side of it that goes alongside with the technology.
precisely, and that's where I'm landing because the issue is the tech is great, but when they now realize that their first entry was mini grids. Mini grids are 50, 100, 200 customers, right? Very closed network. And the developer is incentivized to chase and to close the gaps. And also, most mini grids were funded by donor funding or grants or whatever. So there was a lot of money to
Mm.
spend to ensure these things happen. So that process thought, okay, yeah, they can actually work in very remote areas where the grid is so far away. I'm able to get people to recharge their off-grid system quickly. So it was fantastic. Now the move was in 2021 to come onto the grid. And that process is so clear that technology only gets you so far. So, for instance, in one of the pilots that they did in one of the discos, they were able to increase revenue in that small 300-person cluster by 3x or 2x. Something outrageous that the disco then increased their 4 hours of supply to 11 hours, so they're getting more money.
Mhm.
So all these things happened, and at the end, you would expect the disco to be running and saying, "Oh yeah, let's do this." No. So I paint this picture of saying people, discos and just in general, you think your technology is superior, you bring it in, the person says, "I like your technology, but X, Y, and Z." So the conversation now that the discos are having with the Symmeco team is, "Oh, we can't put your cost in our
Correct.
in our tariff." And from clarifications by the people who set the tariff, have said a disco can do whatever they want to their model. They just need to maybe not buy the 5 Prados this year and actually spend that money on an AMI system or a
I mean,
SaaS.
if haven't they done the cost benefits analysis to know that if they have this meter, they can increase the supply to this area so they get more revenue? Doesn't it make sense?
Oh, no, yeah, I think they have, and it's also then boils down to you agree at the very high level to do this thing for your disco, but then you now get down to using your technology, this fantastic new technology, to now get it to work at the local level, and then you realize that that's not quite working because the people in charge, the disco staff, are not allowing you to do the work correctly. And it might be facetious, but it might just be because of other reasons. Maybe the suppliers are not there. So I think regardless of what you think around technology solving the problem, if you haven't done the local understanding, there's a project we're doing. They told us 500 meters. We're now installing 900 meters in the same location. So it's not that then Disco said they done the enumeration, and they said we had 500, but now there's 900. So imagine the confusion that could pose to a board. Like,
Yeah,
wait, what's happening here? So I think technology is important, but there's a really important piece where you have to get on the ground.
yeah,
And I think that's the benefit of Connect, having people like you around, because you understand the local context.
yeah. It's multifaceted. I think technology is. Also depending on where you are on the network. Technology might solve like 90% of your issues, and then just have 10% to do with it's like this the more operational things, the more stakeholder management. But there are some places where the most advanced technology is not going to work, and it it as in I think generally just outside of the power sector, I think there needs to be some sort of culture reset. And as in when before we started this conversation, we're talking about the trust deficit. There is a trust deficit. So a lot of times people just going with the attitude that somebody's going to cheat me, so let me cheat them first. So if you're already dealing with this kind of attitude coming from customers, it's already a challenge that you have to overcome. So part of yes, I will strengthen my network, I'll reinforce it, I'll put in the technology, but you need to get the customers buying. Like a lot of multinationals, they care so much about their brand because they understand the power of brand. So if tomorrow we can wake up and to us NEPA is the um beacon of professionality, of quality, of service, once you have been able to achieve that kind of attitude around your brand, you will get the customers on board. So it's like I don't know if it's a chicken and an egg issue, as in do you have to have the brand first before you get the customers on board, or you get the customers on board and that will help elevate your brand. But we need to fix the attitude towards electricity service providers, because generally the attitude towards them is that they don't perform. So if you're already going in with that, you're already hurdled. So I mean, it's I don't know. It's so many forces to this thing.
Yeah.
That's why I say it's interesting. You can never be bored.
No, 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 not at all. So, last question: Where Connect has obviously pivoted throughout your journey. You were focused in a few, I think it was Kano, Kaduna back in the day. You're now doing stuff in Lagos. You're now moving through the country. What does the next 5 years look like for companies like Conexa, maybe specifically Conexa?
Specifically Connexa, I think not so on one hand, not just focus, not just remaining in Nigeria, looking regionally as well. I think exciting opportunities with the WAP regional pool.
Hmm.
So looking towards opportunities in that sense within Nigeria. Um, I think one of the key things we've learned to manage risk is you need to have some sort of visibility of the entire uh, value chain. So for us, we're also looking into now investment in transmission, because transmission is like the spine, and if the spine is broken,
Everyone's done.
you're not walking anywhere. So the more you are in the sector, the more you learn, and as in you learn where opportunities are. As I said, when we first started, we realized distribution is key. Be able to have that relationship with the end user to be able to collect revenue. But then now, when you're looking at a more bigger picture, you're looking at generation, renewable energy. You now need the grid to be what it needs to be. It needs to be
Hmm.
stable, it needs to be strong, it needs to be available.
Hmm.
And in the projects we've been doing, we've been engaging a lot with TCN. There are so many infrastructure that have been built and are just stranded. So you have substations with no lines connecting them, right of way issues, and these are big problems that you need government to help manage. But it also needs private sector. It needs private sector to bring in their discipline, their operational capabilities, working alongside government agencies such as TCN to make sure that the infrastructure is there.
Hmm.
So, and obviously NERC as well, coming up with the right kind of framework that will incentivize private sector to come in and invest in transmission and being able to ensure that they get their money back. But yeah, I think transmission is interesting area for investment.
Yeah. Last question, I think. What's the what's your default rate for people paying their tariffs? Do you guys have 100% collection rate given like you have very large customers?
Yeah, as I said, it's like in Kaduna one customer, in Lagos one customer, in Enugu one customer. So
So
it's just like how are you going to default? You're looking at the customer,
so
you know?
your cash flow
Yeah,
is
yeah.
quite secure.
And whereas in also we do a lot of due diligence when we engage with the customers. They are doing their due diligence on us, we're doing it on them. And like for instance with Kaduna project, we've managed to, with the solution that we're providing, we've managed to reduce their cost of power significantly. So for them
It's a
it's
no-brainer.
no brainer. So
Well, things that are no-brainer in Nigeria are normally not globally no-brainers, but this one is
it
apparently.
is. I mean, as like I said, for us, it's in one sense it's easier because we're focusing on we have small operate. It's a small. It's a large load, but it's one customer. So we can spend as much as time we need with our customer engagement, customer facing, making sure the customer is happy, understanding their problems, also understanding the challenges, work hand in hand, because we have the ability to invest that much time in the customer.
Mm.
Or a disco, when you have like 500,000 customers, they don't have the time to be able to invest that kind of time in customers.
Yeah, no, no, no. Thank you so much for coming. And just to wrap, I think one of the one thing I've learned about the next is that you guys are a bit media shy. I don't see a lot of I don't see a lot of information on the projects. I don't see a lot of information on what you guys are up to.
Yeah, I felt like there was a lot of press coverage last year about Connexa. But in terms of the company itself, like putting out news and all that, yeah, we're trying to get better. So, I mean, right now we're updating our website, and we will be a lot more active on our social media handles this year. So, making sure we keep people abreast. Also, it's the best way to attract other customers.
Definitely.
Let them know what we've done, what we've achieved. So, and they see other businesses like themselves who are willingly engaging with us, who have bought into our solution, and who are benefiting from it. So it makes it easier for our business development. So definitely this year we will be much better with our social media presence.
And given that you're on the podcast is a right step in the right direction. And then just a plug here is a lot of the things that the communication and media team does here.
Mhm.
We've worked with companies to help project and propel what they're doing because a lot of people are saying, I'm a technical company, I don't have time for this media part of it, but it's something that we're understanding that the more we do it, the more we can actually get more similar customers to come over and say, help me do this, and now alleviate some of the wahala they have on the grid and more productivity. So
Definitely, yeah.
we will be looking forward to working with you guys. And then I would love to visit one of your sites,
Yeah, well, here in Abuja, you
even
can
your control
visit.
room.
I'm gonna say the control room. So, in fact, our office is just on Parakou, literally 2 minutes away.
You're joking.
Yeah, we're on Parakou, so you can come, and whenever you're available, we'll take you to
Before
the.
the Turkish embassy or the
Do you
Turkish.
know where the mosque is?
Yes.
Opposite the mosque.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So
It'll
we
be
can
good
take
to.
you to the control center anytime. And anytime you're in Kaduna, give me a call. The team will show you around the substation.
Interesting. I'm sure you have more better tech here than we do at the National Control Center.
So, part of what we're doing now, obviously, we're working very closely with NISO because we're developing a solar. And so part of the requirements we've been discussing through, the requirement for BESS with intermittent energy. And so also about control and communication. And so part of the things we're working with them is, that they will come and see our controls center and,
This
maybe
is on grid solar.
on-grid solar.
Interesting. So many, I can go to many places with that thought, but we'll save it for next
But I
time.
think the most important thing that has come out of that development is this new requirement to have BESS co-located with intermittent energy. So you can't just have straight solar connected to the grid. So they're working on that
So
policy
the
now.
variability that
Yeah.
was one of the challenges before, there were the best around
To
then.
at least to a certain level to smooth it out.
Has NERC passed that regulation?
No. So the NICE are currently working on the policy.
So as part of the grid code, right? Or market?
I'm not sure it will be part of the grid code. I know they've engaged, I think it's AFDB to help them with that study. So they're doing a study, and from the results of that study, they will come up with the right policy and regulations.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hasna.
Thank you.
This has been fantastic.